Empress Maria Teresa enacted laws to control what her subjects did behind closed bedroom doors, and when people gave in to their desires, the punishment was utterly horrific. Maria Teresa ruled the Habsburg Empire for 40 years. In the beginning, she let the men around her govern in her place, but once she started rejecting their counsel and relying on her own instincts, she emerged as a strong and capable ruler in her own right. Though many regard her as the last great Habsburg monarch, the darker deeds she carried out during her rise to power and then her reign remain impossible to forget. Born on May 13, 1717, Maria Teresa entered the world during a tumultuous time for her parents. Though she was the second child of the Holy Roman Emperor Charles VI and Elizabeth Christine, she was their eldest surviving offspring. Her older brother, Archduke Leopold Johann, had died in infancy only 6 months earlier. As a Habsburg, Maria had an endless list of noble European connections. Among her cousins were a Russian emperor, a Prussian queen, and the Queen of Denmark and Norway, along with countless dukes and duchesses across the continent. It was a formidable bloodline, and the young girl's appearance reflected it. Maria Teresa strongly resembled her mother, as did her younger sister, Maria Anna. The elder daughter had large blue eyes, a wide mouth, fair hair tinged with red, and a notably sturdy build. Yet she differed from other Habsburgs in one remarkable and significant way. Unlike many of her ancestors, Maria Teresa was not the product of a close kin union. Marriages between cousins were disturbingly common within the Habsburg family tree, but Maria's parents and grandparents were not closely related. This made her somewhat unusual among the Habsburgs, and she would continue to defy expectations throughout her life. As a child, Maria had a reserved, serious demeanor, but she found joy in archery and above all singing. Maria Teresa was a natural performer, and luckily for her, the imperial family often staged opera productions in which she would perform. Unfortunately, some of her interests were frowned upon by her family. Maria developed an early fascination with horses, but her father forbade her from learning to ride, considering it an unsuitable interest for a royal woman. His strictness toward her interests reflected a deeper frustration, one that Maria could sadly do nothing about. Maria Teresa's father, Charles VI, longed for a son. After the death of his infant firstborn, Elizabeth Christine did not have any more sons. Thus, Maria's birth was a bitter disappointment to Charles, one he never fully recovered from. Even so, he worked tirelessly to secure her future. By the rules of Habsburg succession, Charles VI was originally set to be succeeded by his brother's daughters. Determined to keep the crown in his direct line, the emperor spent much of his reign arranging for Maria Teresa to inherit his throne. He issued decrees altering the succession and sought recognition from other European powers for this arrangement. Yet, despite ensuring her right to rule, Charles never properly prepared his daughter for leadership. He allowed Maria to attend council meetings from the age of 14, but he never discussed matters of state with her, nor did he take steps to train her as a ruler. Instead, he expected her to fulfill the only other duty befitting her station. As the daughter of the Holy Roman Emperor, destined to rule herself, Maria's future depended on a politically successful marriage. Her parents settled on Leopold Clement of Lorraine as a suitable match, but fate intervened. In 1723, before the pair had even met, the groom succumbed to smallpox. Death due to smallpox would become something of a theme in Maria Teresa's life, as you will see. The imperial family was forced to start their search all over again. Though the emperor considered other candidates, Leopold's younger brother, Francis Stephen, quickly became the favored choice. Maria grew close to him, though their bond was tested when she was briefly betrothed to Charles of Spain. That arrangement, however, collapsed under the weight of foreign interference, much to Maria's relief. On February 12, 1736, she married Francis Stephen, a man she loved deeply. But her fairy tale romance would soon prove bittersweet. Maria Teresa adored her husband from the start. Even before their wedding, her letters brimmed with longing and passion. But after the couple was married, she was said to be intensely possessive, and tragically, Francis did not return her devotion. While Maria's correspondence overflowed with affection, Francis's letters were restrained and formal. Worse, he quickly lost interest in being faithful to his marriage vows. His string of not-so-secret affairs caused Maria much heartache. On October 20th, 1740, Maria's father, Emperor Charles VI, died, likely from mushroom poisoning. He was only 55 years old at the time. Though heartbroken at the loss of her beloved father, Maria now found herself the ruler of the Habsburg dynasty. Her rise to power was extraordinary in more ways than one. When she was crowned in Vienna on November 22, 1740, Maria Teresa was pregnant, a detail captured in contemporary portraits of the ceremony. It was a fitting start to a reign that would be very unique. For the first time, a woman held the most important role in the Habsburg dynasty. With that came not only power and prestige, but also a vast empire to run. As sovereign, Maria Teresa presided over a staggering collection of territories, including Austria, Hungary, Croatia, Bohemia, Transylvania, and the Austrian Netherlands, among others. She would rule this sprawling empire until her death. Her reign spanned 40 years, one of the longest of any European monarch. Through her marriage to Francis Stephen, she gained even more titles: Duchess of Lorraine, Grand Duchess of Tuscany, and eventually Holy Roman Empress. Yet all the titles in the world could not protect her from the chaos her father left behind. Maria's father left her an enormous challenge, restoring the Habsburg state. Years of conflict, along with Charles's obsession with securing her succession, had drained the empire's resources. When he died, the treasury held only 100,000 florins, and these funds were quickly claimed by his widow. And money wasn't the only crisis Maria Teresa had to face. Charles's wars had also left the army in shambles. It had been cut by more than 50,000 men, scattered across the empire, and the soldiers who remained were undisciplined and poorly trained. Maria Teresa was horrified, later admitting, "As for the state in which I found the army, I cannot begin to describe it." Overwhelmed, she struggled to cope. Since her father had failed to prepare her for her future role, Maria Teresa initially leaned on her husband and her father's ministers, trusting their supposed experience. But in truth, these ministers were deeply incompetent. They were the ones who had helped create the crisis in the first place. Maria later regretted giving them so much control. In fairness, she had another urgent problem to face. Soon after she took the throne, several European rulers broke the promises they had made to her father to respect her claim. Working with her disinherited cousin, they began plotting to seize pieces of her inheritance, or even to dethrone her outright. By December 1740, tensions erupted. Frederick II of Prussia seized his chance and marched into the Duchy of Silesia. He demanded Maria give him the territory, or he would ally with her enemies. But Silesia was rich in minerals, and Maria could not afford to lose it. She refused his demand, triggering the War of the Austrian Succession, a brutal conflict that would last 8 years. In the process, she made a permanent enemy. Frederick's invasion marked the beginning of a bitter rivalry. He even tried to bargain, offering to support Maria's rights if she gave him part of Silesia, a deal her husband was willing to consider. Maria Teresa flatly refused. By the time the war ended, Maria Teresa had weathered the storm better than anyone expected. She lost Silesia, the spark that had started the conflict, along with a few smaller Italian territories, but against all odds, she held on to most of the vast Habsburg domains. She never forgave Frederick II, later calling him that evil man. She had made an enemy in the Prussian ruler, but she was also building crucial alliances elsewhere. In 1741, to everyone's surprise, Maria Teresa secured the loyalty of Hungary. On October 25th of that year, she was crowned Queen of Hungary. She had worked tirelessly for this, mastering the horsemanship required for the ceremony and negotiating with Hungarian leaders. Showing further diplomatic skill, Maria Teresa hatched a clever plan to subvert some of the gender-biased obstacles on her path to Hungarian support. Many Hungarian leaders considered her womanhood to be a hindrance, so in a cheeky move, she appeased them by assuming masculine titles. Thus in Hungary, Maria was officially Archduke and King, though still generally addressed as Queen. Still bruised by the loss of Silesia, Maria Teresa tried again to reclaim the territory. Her attempt sparked another long conflict, the 7 Years' War, but once again, she failed to win back Silesia. Following this failure, Maria learned her lesson. For the rest of her reign, she avoided the turmoils of war and turned her focus to domestic reforms. She also realized it was time to get rid of the deadweight in her administration. Because of her gender, many expected Maria Teresa to hand over power to her husband and eldest son, who officially were her co-rulers. But after years of bad advice, she chose to rule her own way. She sidelined her co-rulers, assembled a council of trusted advisors, and asserted herself as sovereign. From then on, Maria Teresa really started to come into her own as a ruler. Though she still loved her husband dearly, she quickly banned him from deciding matters of state. While the Empress permitted Francis Stephen to attend council meetings, she would dismiss him anytime they had a disagreement. In fact, her whole family feared invoking her wrath. Maria Teresa was known for her strictness, often scolding her children for any fault, big or small. She berated her youngest daughter, Maria Antonia, for not conceiving a child, and scolded her son Leopold for being too quiet. She criticized others for their politics, lack of discipline, or poor French. Her list of complaints about her children seemed almost as long as her list of children. And that list was long. Maria Teresa was famously fertile. Pregnancy was a near constant in her life. Between 1737 and 1756, she gave birth to 16 children. 13 survived infancy and 10 made it to adulthood. Still, she somehow managed to keep a sense of humor about her endless childbearing. For the first 15 years of her reign, only 2 things seemed constant: pregnancy and war. The Empress even joked that she would have gone into battle herself if she hadn't been perpetually pregnant. After her first fiancé died of smallpox, the disease continued to devastate her family. Several of her children caught it, 2 died from it, and the disease also killed 2 of her daughters-in-law. Inspired in large part by the havoc smallpox caused in her family's lives, Maria Teresa implemented many important medical reforms during her reign. Chief among these was her decision to sponsor smallpox inoculation trials to prevent the illness. Seeing the effectiveness of the trials, she insisted the imperial family all receive inoculation and promoted it publicly. It was one of the many important reforms Maria Teresa would implement during her reign. She was determined to modernize the Habsburg state and give it stronger foundations for the future. She also turned her attention to rebuilding the empire's economy. Many of Maria Teresa's economic policies sought to mend the financial damage left behind by her imperial father. She also set to work restoring another once great institution. Maria Teresa learned through years of conflict that a strong army meant a strong country. She set about instituting effective reforms to strengthen Austria's forces, which restored the ramshackle operation to its former glory, improving the country's international standing in the process. But while the Empress was progressive in many areas, she was very conservative in others. She harbored a deep hostility and mistrust toward Freemasons, the Jewish community, and Protestants, and her reign has often been described as intolerant, prejudiced, and even guided by superstition. Worst of all, these prejudices regularly found their way into state policy. Uncomfortable with the presence of Jewish communities within her lands, Maria Teresa issued multiple decrees expelling them to remote provinces, disrupting lives and livelihoods in the process. Protestants fared little better. Though they avoided outright expulsion, they were repeatedly pressured to abandon their faith and convert to Catholicism. In both cases, the Empress made no effort to hide the fact that she wanted to enforce religious conformity as a matter of governance. For Maria Teresa, this intolerance was a deeply held belief. She believed that true social harmony could only exist under religious unity, and she explicitly rejected the modern ideals of tolerance. Instead, she championed the creation of a centralized state church, intertwining religion with law and policy. Maria Teresa's religious zeal made her deeply concerned with morality, and she went to great lengths to enforce her strict rules on her subjects. She established a chastity commission to monitor and suppress what she considered immoral behavior, including whatever she considered misconduct, adultery, and relationships across different faiths. The commission worked with local authorities and even employed secret agents to observe the private lives of her subjects. With her approval, they carried out raids on parties, banquets, and other social gatherings where they suspected inappropriate behavior might be happening. And what happened to citizens who were caught violating her rules? The horrific penalties for what Maria Teresa considered immoral behavior ranged from whipping to execution. Maria Teresa's regime also engaged in systematic censoring of publications and educational materials, particularly those perceived to be anti-Catholic. She cracked down on the works of important Enlightenment thinkers like Rousseau and Voltaire, a tragic loss for society at the time. But Maria Teresa was about to face a tragedy of her own. On August 18, 1765, Maria Teresa's emperor husband died on a trip to Innsbruck for his son's wedding. Despite Francis's multiple affairs, the empress, whose love for him had never faded, was completely devastated. She withdrew entirely from public life, cut her hair short, painted all of her rooms black, and mourned for the remainder of her days. And those remaining days would prove very difficult. In 1767, Maria Teresa contracted smallpox, which she never fully recovered from. After the illness, she suffered from coughing fits, fatigue, insomnia, and shortness of breath for the rest of her life. On November 21, 1780, the Empress fell seriously ill again. 5 days later, she died, surrounded by her children at the age of 63. It was the end of a 40-year reign for the Habsburgs' trailblazing female monarch. Despite some shortcomings, Maria Teresa left a mark on the history of the Habsburg dynasty. Her historic rule is viewed as largely positive, and her reputation is of a dignified and capable ruler. Her reforms modernized the Habsburg Empire and improved its international standing, and there was one more important imprint she left on European history. Maria Teresa's youngest daughter, Maria Antonia, married the King of France and changed her name. Better known as Marie Antoinette, she was the last queen of France before the French Revolution. An infamous figure in history, she makes up just one part of the paradigm-shifting legacy of her mother, the first Hapsburg Empress. Thanks for watching History Exposé. If you love uncovering the best stories in history, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring with us. Don't forget to visit our main page, Factinate, for more incredible facts about everything.